Welcome to Flavors of the West Coast, Christmas edition. We're going to meet some of our competition winners. We're going to taste some absolutely delightful wines for Christmas, and we're going to show you how to make some absolutely wonderful appetizers for family, friends, and co-workers. First off, we're going to make cider braised pork belly. Now, when you look at pork belly, it looks rather like bacon. That's because it is. But what we're going to do with this is cook it low and slow and render all that fat off and leave us with this delicious apple flavored pork dish. So the first thing we need to do is take our piece of pork and score the fat. Okay, there's a layer of fat on the outside, so we just want to score through the fat and the skin so that that fat will melt and render and we'll be left with that delicious pork. Cut both ways. Open it right up. I've got my pan on and I'm going to give it a little more heat while that's warming up. A little bit of seasoning, both sides. Don't be afraid to rub your seasoning into the meat. You really want to make sure that that salt is well incorporated into the meat because that's going to draw out the fat and it's going to flavor your meat properly. And same on the skin side, really don't be afraid to rub that in. And a little bit of pepper. Okay, so our pan is quite hot. I don't need any additional fat. There's lots of fat in the pork. And we're just going to let that sear on all sides. That's all you're looking for, just nice and golden brown. It's only taking about 30 seconds on each side. And then the bottom side. Meanwhile, we've got a little bit of chopped onion. We're going to put a clove of garlic in there, just bruised and opened up, so it'll provide a subtle flavor. The more you chop garlic, the more pronounced and intense the flavor becomes. So if you just give it a little bruise, it'll be a much more subtle, delicate flavor. We've got some beautiful sea cider, Kings and Spies organic cider. That's going to provide our liquid, which is going to help to render that fat. And we're going to add enough of that to come about halfway up the pork belly. Bring that up to temperature. You do not want to boil this for a long period of time. We're going to cook this very slowly in the oven. So you just want to get it up to the simmer and then we'll transfer it into our roasting pan. Nice little bit of caramelization on the bottom of the meat. And our hot cider and onions, all those flavors will just meld and blend as we cook this. Drop the onions down into the liquid, otherwise they will burn. That's going into a 300-degree oven for about 3 hours. So this is one of those things you can put together. It only takes a few minutes to start it, put it in the oven, and forget about it. To go with our pork belly, we're going to do a cranberry compote, and we're going to use dried cranberries. And these are sometimes known as craisins, okay? They're dried cranberries and they're going to give us a real nice, rich compote. We want something kind of sharp to work with the pork. So in a small pot, a good handful of your cranberries. And we're going to put, again, we're going to use our cider. We want that flavor to come through the dish. Just enough to cover them because as the cranberries cook and swell, they'll absorb that cider and we'll end up with that nice, rich, thick compote. And we want to put a little onion in there again for a little bit of texture. Nice vertical cuts. Leave the feather end of the onion intact so that it holds it all together for you. And don't forget, onions are made up of layers, so as long as you make those vertical cuts, once you do your lateral cuts there, you get nicely diced onion. Okay? So a little handful of onion in there. And for just a whisper of flavor, we're going to put a few slices of garlic, very, very thinly sliced. So only a half a dozen slices or so. A little bit of seasoning, not too much, just a little salt, a little pepper, and give it a little stir. So you just want to cook this on a low heat. Just keep an eye on it. You don't have to do anything to it now apart from watch the level of fluid. If it gets too dry, a little more cider. So just enough to keep it covered. By the end of the cooking time, everything should be nice and rich and thick and almost jammy. So we'll let that do its thing. Leave that for about 20 minutes. Our pork's got another 3 hours to go, so I think I'm going to go wrap some Christmas presents while we're waiting. So 3 hours later, our pork comes out absolutely beautifully caramelized and golden. A lot of our apple cider has reduced down. Just keep that moist with a little basting. So now what we want to do with this is we need to press it. So we've got 2 plates. And quite easily, we're going to just take our pork. Now, be very gentle with this at this point because it is quite delicate. When it's hot, all those layers of meat and fat do fall apart if you're not careful with it. So very gently, just lift it and put it onto the plate. And then take another plate and put it upside down on top. Okay. Put that in the fridge until it's cold. So once your pork belly is completely cold, take it out of the fridge and have a look at that. A lot of the fat has rendered off and we're left with just that beautiful meat that's absorbed all that beautiful apple flavor. So we'll take that off of there. Now what we have on the surface, of course, is the pork rind, which is good in itself, but we don't want that on here. So just get your knife under one side and you can just peel that right back. And as that comes off, you're left with a beautiful piece of braised pork belly. Now what you want to do is cut that into whatever size it is you want to serve it. So with this one, I'm going to do very small appetizer size, 1-bite portions. So we just cut nice, neat strips. And then turn it sideways, and we're just going to make little bite-sized pieces. Now, you can serve these cold, but they're much better if you give them a little blast in the oven just to put some heat back into them. We're just going to pop them back into a roasting pan or a baking sheet. Separate them so that the hot air can move around them. Put these into about a 400-degree oven. You want to just color the outside a little bit. Cook them real fast, but you want all that flavor to remain inside. Don't overcook them at this point. If you overcook them, they're going to become dry and stringy. You want to keep all that moisture inside. So once these have had a couple of minutes in the oven, you want them to just start to sizzle around the top. Again, that fat has rendered off a little more, so every time we're cooking it, we're just getting a little more fat out of it each time. And I've got these wonderful bamboo skewers, which not only are from a sustainable source, because bamboo grows so fast and they can regrow it very quickly, but it's also compostable, as opposed to the little plastic frilled toothpicks. I'm just going to stick them in at a little bit of an angle into each delicious bite of pork belly. Now our compote should be fairly dry by this point. Just a little bit of liquid in there. And the idea of having the dried cranberries really does give you a much tartar finished product, and it holds its shape much better. You can see how the cranberries actually hold that shape. If you use fresh cranberries, they break down and become more of a sauce. Whereas this way, we've got that little bit of texture. And all we want to do now is put a little bit of that compote on top of each piece of pork belly. And if you use 2 spoons, and just use 1 spoon to carefully take it off the other, you end up with delicious cider braised pork belly with dried cranberry compote. And I guarantee your guests will not be able to eat just one. I am absolutely delighted to announce that the winner of our video competition is Shane Lobsinger of Vancouver with his video recipe for quiche Lorraine.
My name is Shane. Today I'll be doing the French classic quiche Lorraine.
You can check out more of his winning entry on our website, www.flavorsofthewestcoast.com. Congratulations, Shane. So we're going to have one more quick recipe using some beautiful Qualicum Bay scallops, a little bit of red pepper, and a little bit of basil pesto. So we've got white, red, and green, all the beautiful colors of Christmas. So very quickly, all we're going to do, a nice fresh red pepper, top and bottom off. When you're doing your peppers, just skin the inside straight out of there. And that way you can cut them into nice, clean squares for our little sandwich. We're actually going to make a little Qualicum Bay scallop sandwich here. So, beautiful scallops. As always, a little bit of seasoning before we cook them. I've got my pan on a nice high heat. Salt and pepper, both sides, okay? Very important to get the seasoning on both sides of the fish. A little bit of oil into my hot pan. You should see that smoke come off the pan straight away. We want to sear these really, really very quickly. And straight in. When you're dropping the scallops in, you don't want to drop them. Place them. If you do drop them, that's when you're going to get splatter and you're likely to burn yourself. At the same time, I'm going to just drop the peppers in for half a second, skin side down, just to crisp up that skin. And you should have a nice sear on the scallop at this point. Little bit of golden brown, absolutely beautiful. Very important that you use that nice hot pan. Get that sear. If your pan is not hot enough, your scallops are going to boil and they will be tough and not very palatable. A minute on both sides is all you need. Obviously, if they're smaller, less time. If they're bigger, they'll need another moment or two. But in the meantime, our peppers are just nicely browned. Give them a quick flip. This is something, if you're going to do this for a party, you want to be able to do this. It's almost like an action station. You can do this in front of your guests if you're having a kitchen party, because that's where all the best parties end up, is in the kitchen after all. So have this going, and you do these pretty much to order. These are not something that keeps for a long time. You want to make them as fresh as possible. So there's our first scallops are already done. They really don't take much more cooking than that. And we're just going to turn the pan off. Now here comes the science bit. We're going to cut them in half. This is where the sandwich comes in. So just slice them across, and those are beautifully cooked. They should be a little opaque in the center. A piece of pepper on there. Flip that back over. Line these up on our plate. So we've got our white, we've got our red. All that we have left to do is our green for Christmas. And here I've got a nice little bowl of fresh basil pesto and a little tiny bit on the top of each one. Red, white, and green, traditional Christmas colors. Lots of beautiful flavors in there. The nice soft creaminess and the sweetness of the scallops. And then once again, we've got our environmentally friendly bamboo skewers coming from a renewable resource, and they are compostable. There we have it. Some Christmas scallops, red, white, and green. Rod Phillips, wine buyer for Liquor Plus.
Indeed.
Thank you very much for joining us and giving us some insights into what kind of wines and beers, for that matter, we can enjoy over the Christmas period.
Well, thank you for having me, and Merry Christmas too. I saw you out there doing all your wrapping your Christmas presents, and I noticed your wife's is the biggest. That's good. Good on you. Yeah, Christmas, it's one of everybody's favorite time of the year, of course, but it's also probably one of the most difficult times of the year to actually pair wines. With all the stuff that you're making here and all the traditional things that people have at home, you could easily have 50 or 60 different wines to go with each portion of what you're going to be having with Christmas. But most of us, I don't know about you, you're very, very wealthy, of course.
Of course.
Yeah. So I don't know about you, but I really only have 3 or 4 wines at the Christmas table, or even for parties and that kind of stuff, just because they need to be versatile, and it really needs to set a tone for the whole thing.
It has to kind of cross over
a
wide range, doesn't it?
It really, really does.
If I may, Rod, just while we get onto the wines, I'm just going to get our apricots started, and then we can come back to you. Basically, what we're going to do is some spicy pickled apricots and fill them with blue cheese. Now, this is one of those really great dishes that makes an excellent appetizer, but it also makes a great gift. And I'll show you how you can do that in a second. So all we're going to do is make a simple syrup. Okay, so boil some water, and the volume of water, half the volume of sugar. So 2 parts water, 1 part sugar. Bring that up to the boil. Once that's boiling, we've got some just regular dried apricots, okay? You really need to use the dried ones here, because if you use fresh apricots, they'll turn to jam, and we want to retain their shape and their texture. They can go into your simple syrup. Give them a little stir. That's it for this part. We're just going to bring them up to a very gentle simmer and let them simmer for about 20 minutes. So, Rod, we got our apricots on.
Well,
tell us more about the wine.
Yeah, what I've selected here is 4 wines. Right. Now, 2 of these are classics. Yeah. One of the classic wines with Christmas dinner is, of course, Riesling or Rosé. It goes back for centuries. If you're talking about tortillere out of France, or just ham, or some of the Italian cuisine, you'll often find a lot of Rieslings and Rosés that go with dinner.
And of course, Christmas tends to be a time of overindulgence, so you want something a little bit lighter.
You really do. You really do. I mean, think of what's on your usual Christmas plate, right? You've got your protein being the turkey, you've got gravy, you've got, unfortunately in our house, Brussels sprouts. It's not really one of my favorites, but you've got all sorts of great vegetables and yams and all sorts of wonderful things, but they're generally all on one plate. So it's very difficult to pair one wine to go with that. But Riesling, really good quality Riesling, has that opportunity to blend with all those things. It's got the acidity, it's got the mouthfeel, it's got the weight, and it's got the flavors that will not overshadow or underestimate a food. The other one I really like, especially for you red wine drinkers, go with a rosé. In this case, I would go with the Mission Hill 5 Vineyards Rosé. It's got lots of weight to it, lovely strawberries, even a little bit of hint of cranberry.
It's a beautiful, it looks like cranberry juice, doesn't it? It's got that beautiful color to it.
And and think about all the things that you do at your Christmas table, is that one of the things you want to have is just the beauty of the Christmas table. It just sets the tone perfectly. So these would be 2 classic pairings to go with your Christmas. There's 2 other wines I've selected here, and these are unique. Now, the first one is the St. Hubertus Chasselas. Now, Chasselas is actually a Swiss grape. And so most people haven't come across this. There's only 2 wineries in BC that actually make them. It's got, again, much like a Riesling, it's got the apples and peach and all those kind of flavors to it, but it's got a great acidity. It will work just as well as a good Riesling. But the Chasselas it's a hard one to find. But if you can, do it. And again, for all you red wine drinkers, in my belief, Cabernet Franc is the red wine of BC. We make more Merlot, but Cabernet Franc, I think, defines us. The Tinhorn Creek Cabernet Franc, if you've ever had a great Tuscan wine, anything like a Chianti or Sangiovese, there's a sultriness to it. There's almost if I can say it, a sexiness to it.
I was just going to say, it's a sexy wine.
It is a sexy wine. And what Sandra does with her Cabernet Franc is exactly that. Right off the nose, you get these wonderful aromatics, berries and freshness, and almost like a jammy component. Yeah. But on the palate, you get the sultry, velvety, sensuous, sour cherry, and smooth. It's like velvet going down. It is a beautiful wine, and I would go with that for Christmas.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, this is quite a selection. I mean, even just these 4 wines, they've got such different characteristics that they are going to cover such a wide range of stuff that we can put on the table.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, at our Christmas dinners, I may be a cork dork, but my family is not. We want the dinner to be the occasion. It's not about the wine, and these wines will make that occasion just that much better.
Wonderful. Well, That being said, we're going to carry on with our apricots, and I'm sure that they're going to go beautifully with some of these wines.
Absolutely.
So what we've got is our apricots have been simmering just gently in the pot. Now at this point, they don't want to be totally swollen and soft. They still want to be a little bit firm. So as I say, about 20 minutes is plenty of time. Then we've got some rice wine vinegar. Rice wine vinegar it's clean, it's got a little sweetness to it, but it's not got that really harsh acidity that some of your other malt vinegars or even the cider vinegars have got. So it works really well with fruits. So we're going to give that a little bit of rice wine vinegar. That's our pickle. Then our spice is going to be a little bit of ground pepper. Crushed chili peppers, a little bit of salt. We've got a little bit of garlic, and I've got a clove here already peeled, and I want to slice it nice and thin. You want to cut it just lightly so that you get that nice gentle flavor of the garlic, not overpowering. So that's going to go in there. We'll give this a little bit of heat to bring it up to the boil. I've got a little bit of finely chopped red onion. Again, this is for color, a little bit of texture. So that can go in there too. And a few raisins, because again, we're looking for contrasts. We've got the beautiful orange apricots, we've got the nice red onions, and we want to have something with a little bit of contrasting color. So in go the raisins. Bring that whole thing up to the boil. Probably up 2 or 3 minutes is all it's going to take. I've got a nice clean mason jar. And we're going to pour this with the fruits into the mason jar. And you notice the apricots are still intact because, as I say, we're going to fill these with blue cheese. So we want to make sure that we've got some body to them. If you cook them too much, they will end up being mushy. And once you've got all your apricots in there, just top it up with that fluid. And as I say, that makes an absolutely wonderful Christmas gift for friends and family. Ideally, you want to give that about a week. At least.
Okay.
It will last much longer, but you give that about a week for all the flavors to meld together. And through the magic of television, wow. Here's one we did earlier.
Look at that.
Look at that. Now this one I made probably about 3 months ago. So those flavors are really well melded together. This is some nice island blue cheese. What we're going to do is take out a couple of our apricots here. And you notice when they clean these apricots, they quite conveniently and considerately leave a little pocket.
They must have known you were coming.
They must have known we were coming. So you have this little pocket where the seed came out, and then it's just a case of taking little chunks of blue cheese and just push it right into that apricot. If you don't like blue cheese, use a brie, use a camembert, use something that appeals to you. But I like the blue. I think the blue has that.
You need
nice
something with a little bit of softness to it in terms of the texture.
Really, I mean, that being said, you could put feta in here.
Right.
You could put a little bocconcini.
Or aged cheddar.
Aged cheddar would work very well. Again, we've got that spice coming through and the vinegar coming through, so there's lots of flavors. It's nice to have something that's, I prefer something more creamy, but as I say, you can actually put in there whatever your heart desires. And that's really all there is to it.
So I'm just going to grab us a couple glasses here, and maybe we should have a little chancellor with that.
That sounds like a fantastic
Oh,
idea,
that.
Rod.
Yeah.
That's why I like you. That's why we have you around so much, because you're full of good ideas.
Cheers. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Rod. Oh. That's divine.
Isn't that great?
That's divine. And you know what I think is even better? Is to try it with one of the apricots.
Here comes the Mozart concert.
That works so
Does
well,
that
Peter.
work out well? And it's, you know, often with food and wine pairing, you sometimes are looking for a foil or something to enhance.
Yeah.
You know, the spices really, I mean, this wine has got lots of depth all the way through the palate. But with the spices, the pickling spices that are in there, boy, the back of my mouth is just alive right now.
I was just going to say that. The back is all tingly and wonderful, but it's
Exactly.
not hot. It's not spicy hot,
Yeah.
but it's just, as you say, it's alive.
It almost makes me think I'm going to say something intelligent, which is rare. So maybe that'll be my New Year's resolution.
To say more intelligent things.
That's right.
Rod,
And eat better.
Thank you very, very much.
Good to see you again.
Merry Christmas.
Cheers.